Hi, this is Tim of the 1916 Company. Welcome and thanks for logging on. If you love this watch, email us tmosso@the1916company.com for purchase, pricing, and availability questions concerning this watch. Today, we're discussing a golden oldie, a yellow golden oldie from Vacheron Constantin. This is the 49003 chronograph. This little guy was launched in 1990 and made through about 2002, and somewhere about 750 pieces were made. This was a kinder, gentler era of Vacheron production when the company wasn't pushing all out for volume, so there's some lovely little hand-finished and handcrafted elements here that are not possible in mass production. Of course, Vacheron back then, as it was for most of its quarter millennium of existence, was an établisseur, taking the best movement available, regulating it in-house, and then combining it with a watch designed by Vacheron's stylists and their freelance designers, because at the time, Vacheron often brought in freelancers to execute watch designs. This would have been a large watch by the standards of 1990, being 38 millimeters in diameter, in yellow gold, and you can see right here, it is 9.1 millimeters thick from lug tip to lug tip. It is 43.6 millimeters with a 19 millimeter spacing between the lugs. And more than anything else, that lug spacing and lug-to-lug dimension really marks this as a product of a different era. As lug-to-lug, you can see this watch wears reasonably well on any wrist, male or female, and it's phenomenally well fit to my 16 centimeter circumference wrist. The lugs are nowhere near the edge of the wrist, even from over the top, which exaggerates the width of the watch. I could recommend this for him or for her on wrists as small as 13.5 centimeters circumference. With a 9.1 millimeter thick case and a sloped case flank, it will slide easily under a dress cuff. This one's in great shape, by the way. You can see the watch is on a strap that is a combination of alligator leather on top, black gloss, monotone stitch. You can see we have in profile a sheer cut flank that's been lacquered for refinement. There's no crimping, no gouging, calfskin on the bottom. We have pull tab spring bars. You can pop the strap off the case without a tool. And then you can see there is a Vacheron Constantin yellow gold pin buckle, and just like the watch, which has pre-1995 hallmarks, the buckle does as well. It is the Maltese cross, which is the symbol of the brand. You could see it on the dial, you could see it on the crown. Although, you'll also note that the Caseback engravings and stamps, including the Maltese cross, remain incredibly sharp. This watch has been rarely, if ever, polished, which is a wonderful thing to find on a timepiece from decades ago. So, despite its 3 decades, this is a watch that's well preserved. You can see that the lugs are still quite full. They haven't been whittled down. The shape and the volume, even from end to end and side to side, there's a beautifully sharp break between the lug and the case, because this is old school welded on lug construction, where the case and the lugs are made separately. The lugs are slotted into the case band, welded on, and then by hand filing and polishing, the gathered material from the weld is removed and that nice sharp break is achieved. It's beautiful. You can also see the lugs have a bit of complexity to them, as that there is a little bit of a foot or a tuck profile on their bottom. So Vacheron lugs have always been shapely, and this is no exception. The case back is stepped in a little bit, which makes the watch look even thinner on the wrist than it is, and it's fairly thin. We have this dramatically inset domed bezel profile. You can see that the pushers are very old school in profile, cylindrical, not a look you see too often. And then we have the Vacheron crown, and my goodness, they thought of everything. The case maker gave us a little kerf underneath to dig your nail in under the crown should you desire. Now, the watch would have been 30 meters water resistant back in its day. I recommend you not test that on a watch that, truth be told, can be considered vintage these days. The dial with a lovely pyramide-style Clous de Paris. You can see the sub-registers feature a little bit of a countersink with polished chapterings. We have a scale-out board for reading our minutes, seconds, and chronograph fractions of a second. Baton-style hands for the hours and minutes. We've got leaf or feuille-style hands for the sub-registers, and a blackened lancet-style counterweighted seconds hand for chronograph seconds. We have applied yellow gold indices as well as Vacheron logo, and because all hands and indices are yellow gold, we have the aperture marks, or the sigma dial here. Vacheron, like many Swiss watch brands, began using this symbol at the encouragement of a Swiss precious metals trade organization in the 70s, aperture being the abbreviation that refers to that group. These are sometimes known as the aperture marks or the sigma dials because they look like the Greek letter sigma. And Vacheron persisted with that right up until the turn of the 21st century. You can see that we have little registers with the numerals laid out radially, and if we get really close, you can even see that delightful little serif-style fonts are used here. The watch has a faceted aperture for the date, so it's not a nice, ugly sheer cut. And I said nice, ugly sheer cut, but what I mean is that a lot of times when designers aren't careful, they'll just cut a hole in the dial, and then that's what the dial maker will provide. Whereas here, we have a sloped step down to the aperture, so it's not a sheer cut from the dial to the disc below. It's rather a slope, which is progressive and elegant. The watch does feature a quick set date function, though it does not feature a hacking seconds function, and that's because inside we have Vacheron Caliber 1136, which is a Frederic Piguet 1185 horlogerie integrated ultra-thin column wheel vertical clutch automatic chronograph movement. Originally created by Frederic Piguet for Blancpain, back when those two companies were under Jean-Claude Biver, and before they were owned by Swatch Group. This is a super slim movement. It's only about 5.5 millimeters thick. Automatic winding with unidirectional action. It's got a 40-hour power reserve, quick set date, 3 Hz beat rate, pivots on 37 joules. It's adjusted in 5 positions, and it does have that desirable tandem of a column wheel for crisp and snappy chronograph action and a vertical clutch so that there's no jump, stagger, or extraneous movement to the chronograph seconds hand when you engage it, unlike a lateral clutch. Now, if you wish, you can also leave the chronograph engaged full-time. Some people like to have that center seconds. With a vertical clutch, it will not cause undue additional wear and tear. And though you cannot see it, the movement is hand-finished, which is important to me, as it is an horlogerie movement in a watch to match. So, if you love this watch, reach out to Team Osso at the 1916company.com for purchase pricing and availability questions.